Hello and welcome back to the clinicaltrialsguru.com. I'm your host Dan Sfera and I'm here with Barbara Duck, world famous medical quack healthcare blogger. She runs a very popular blog. Everyone reads her blog. Meg Whitman was reading it, probably still is, right? Your email list is ridiculous.
It is. I'm surprised you've gone through it, but yeah, I even get the White House on there once in a while too. I've got some members of Congress that follow me. Yeah,
So we have Obama as a subscriber.
I don't know. I think when he was running, I think he, included me in like half the rest of the world, but I can't claim fame to that.
So you have Barack Obama's Gmail address, right?
Yeah, probably.
All right, very good. Yeah, so Barbara, she's very passionate about blogging about health-related topics, not necessarily clinical research, but she does cover that, and we've interviewed her on here before, where we discussed all kinds of technologies that were coming out at that time, which was already 3 years ago, Barbara. So a lot has
Wow.
changed since even then. I think last time we spoke, you had a Windows phone.
Yes, and I still do.
You still do the same
It's a
phone.
no, it's a new one.
Ah, okay, there you go. Yeah, I got the Galaxy Note 2,
Hmm.
in need of an upgrade. Okay, so a lot has changed since the last time. There's your win. Is that the
There it
Nokia?
is. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, those are
exactly.
nice. So a lot has happened since the last time. The quantified self movement, which you and I both have our own opinions on, has gotten stronger, I would say. And we can talk about wearable technologies, and then all the issues, all the ethical issues that go along with having your data stored somewhere, your private data. And that's really where that's an area that Barbara really gets passionate about. So we're going to talk about that. So welcome, Barbara.
Thank you, Dan.
And you wanted to first talk about the St. Joseph's, right? Or the VA hospital.
Yeah. That's something that, well, I mean, you'd have to be living under a rock not to see what's going on at the VA, because there's been a news coverage all over the place. And, it started in Phoenix and kind of grew from there. And yeah, I've written a few blog posts about it. And it's kind of interesting. My one thing that I thought was strange is that to everybody, it's been a big surprise. Well, I just went into the VA message boards where vets are talking amongst themselves and versus kind of what I was hearing on the news and so on and so forth. Went in there and looked, and gosh darn, they've lined out a lot of their problems, and I guess nobody's paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things. I mean, when it came to the surprise element, we have commercial people that are scanning every little thing that we put on the web, but when it comes to paying attention to the vets talking to them amongst themselves and talking about their issues, I guess nobody was looking there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was one thing.
And
And then,
what was your thoughts on the 23andMe? Because I wanted to get your opinion on that too, and we can get into that later on in the interview if you wanted to.
okay.
Um, what was your take on that whole 23andMe thing as far as the FDA telling them that they basically can't make those claims, and what do you think they do with that data? Because I know the founder is the wife of one of the Google guys, right?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting. It's kind of, well, it's a tough situation, I think. I read the other day to where 23andMe are going to go outside the US and look for clients, outside the country. But, I can also appreciate some of the stance that the FDA takes out there as well, because we have so much stuff that is exaggerated, maybe not true, misleading. I'm not pinning anything in particular on 23andMe, but the consumer today has so much flying at them. So, and the FDA has a responsibility to somewhat protect us from ourselves too. So I see a little bit of that, but I can understand the 23andMe as far as ancestry and basic, information. Yeah. And, but the FDA, do people know how to use it yet? I mean, beyond looking up their ancestry and a few things, that's so it's kind of like up and down.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as far as the whole quantified self movement, because when we first started talking back in 2010, the whole concept of the e-patient, the empowered patient, right? What does the E stand for actually?
Electronic, I guess.
Electronic? Electronic or empowered. But yeah, electronic would make more
Yeah,
sense.
I'm kidding. Yeah, but I have my viewpoints on that too. I'm a big privacy advocate. And right now, with the way everything is going, I don't trust what's going on out there. I'm also a big personal health records fan too. I was one of the very first ones out there running out there promoting it because I could see the value. But again, I come back around to sometimes ideas take time to develop out there. And I just figured, okay, I'm a little bit ahead of my time as I was with tablets years ago. I was back at HIMSS in 2000, what was it, 8 or so, 9,
Mm.
running around with my tablet, and everybody thought I was a goober. Now look where we're at. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
everybody's got one. But yeah, I was just I think some of the devices, people aren't ready for it. Being a former software developer, it's very hard to design the software that people are going to like and use. I've been fooled before myself, so I'm not an expert. I've come up, well, when I was writing my medical record system, I come up with a new module and I thought, man, docs are going to like this. This is going to do this, that, and da 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 da. And, they took one look at it and tried it for a couple of days and they said, it's garbage. It doesn't work. So you have to eat your own dog food, and you sit back down, put heads together again, and I would come back with, okay, I can't do this, but I can maybe do this, and or if you guys want this, tell me if I can do this and if this works. That's
Mm-hmm.
what it's all about. So not that I'm that smart, but I just got fooled a long time ago on what works for people, what people like. And so we have too many. We've got a glut, just a glut of M Health apps out there. I just about freak out all the time. A couple of years ago, I started saying, well, make an app that does more than one thing because we had too many apps that only did one thing.
Right.
So I said, at least start combining these things.
And have
But
they been doing that?
some, but there's still, I mean, every time somebody creates a new query or a new little interface that is just a little bit different from the other guys, it's like smash, boom, bang. Oh man, we got something great out here, and this one is just going to set the world on fire. It's like, come on. It's like looks like a me too of this guy's stuff over here. And after a while, there's only so much you have time to intake. And so it's just like, yeah, there's a lot of me too's out there or something that has a little value, but you know, are people going to use it? The most important thing to think about, though, is do people work that way? And I don't
Mm-hmm.
think right now everybody wants to make money selling their software. They're not even thinking about that. Let's just whip it up out there in the computer code kitchen and throw it out there and see if it sticks to the wall.
So, Barbara, let me ask you, as a technology guru and as a someone who has done software and coding in the past. I don't know if you still do
No, not anymore.
anymore. Okay. So, as someone with extensive knowledge on all this stuff, we have a lot of people watching who are from CROs or from pharma companies
Hmm.
um, who are trying to build an app. It doesn't have to be an app, but it could be like an integrated website that has an app. Basically, they want to find a way to make clinical trial recruitment easier, and they're incorporating a lot of different things. There's some companies that use text messaging to recruit patients. Like, let's say someone is watching a TV ad about a trial, they can text a number. So now this company gets involved, where now they have the contact info, and there people are trying, and no one has perfected this yet, but they're trying to make the perfect model for clinical research recruitment
Hmm.
when it comes to using technologies, and no one seems to know the best way to go about doing that, myself included. I'm involved with a few companies where we're trying to figure this out, especially from a recruitment standpoint. So, what is your advice to these people?
Well, you've got the same problem everybody else has out there too. That same problem goes into medical records. It goes everywhere. But no, I understand what you're saying. And yeah, it's how do you get people interested? What's the best avenue to use? And I really don't think there's any one specific, magic answer there. I mean, it's all through education. Education, of course, is your best, methodology. And
Hmm.
the more people you can attract to read about that, I mean, the more people that you're going to get in a trial.
Do you think you can have an app that includes all that technology and also educates, or do you think the education needs to come from somewhere else?
Well, I mean, there's the U.S. Gov site that has all the clinical trials on there, and people can go search that. I mean, that's one place that they can go, but that doesn't have everything.
Right.
And there was a company that was out there. I think they're still out there, Trial X, that had a
Yes.
search
Yes.
engine where you could
Yes.
go in and look for different trials like that. And I don't. I think they may have had an app. But that to
They
me, I
did.
mean,
Yeah.
having a search, I mean, that's going to be the easiest thing, for people to look at. And I mean, again, it may not be 100% inclusive either,
Mm-hmm.
because you've
Mm-hmm.
got clinical trials popping up all over the place, and all of them aren't US Gov approved, clinical trials either.
Right. Right.
So, but if you had one where people could find it, I mean, that's certainly not going to be hurt anything.
So, what do you think as far as building the app? Because I know that the most obvious solution is to have the search feature on there.
Right.
But as far as the education, because clinicaltrials.gov and any other government websites, they don't do that good of a job, and they have a lot
No.
of restrictions. They can't do everything that's required to get the word out about clinical research because there's a lot of red tape around what they can and can't say. So, how does a private company go about doing this better? What kind of technologies would you like to see integrated into one app uh, if it were to come down to clinical research recruitment?
Well, I mean, if you can somehow or other be listed on like a patient portal,
Hmm.
I mean, because patient portals are starting to become very popular. I mean, and patient portals aren't the answer to saving money as everybody thinks either. They're there to help the patient and the doctors communicate.
So, what's a patient portal for the people out there that don't know?
Oh, okay. Well, that's you see a lot of hospitals, doctors, have the portals. Basically, it's a site where you as a patient can go log on, and you can log on and check your medical records. A lot of it just depends. Like if you're talking about Kaiser as an example, they have their portal where their patients can log on, email back and forth with their doctors, get their lab results, and a lot of other health concerns are doing the same thing. So on the front of that portal, if you have a section where you had links to clinical trials, that could be a good spot because they're going
Hmm.
to be going to the portal anyway.
Right.
So, the thing is to even consumers have limited time these days too. But the key is to get a link to the consumer while they're there doing something else, so they don't have to make it work. In other
Right.
words, don't make it pain free.
Right. Yeah, I know from my experiences, I'm familiar with Kaiser. I used to have Kaiser. Now I have a different PPO, HealthNet. I don't know what
Hmm.
your thoughts are on them, but it's a lot more difficult to get a hold of my records now.
Yep. Yep.
Um,
Well, you know the
so,
difference between an integrated and a non-integrated system then now.
right, yes, now I do. And although I do like the quality of care slightly better here with
Hmm.
HealthNet, but as far as getting my records as a patient, what incentive would I have? Because I don't know if you're familiar with Quintiles, the big CRO in research. They own, I think it was MediGuard or one of those um, patient portals where you were encouraged to upload your records and also what medications you're taking.
Hmm.
And in exchange, they would verify whether there's any potential adverse interactions between your meds, right?
Yeah, and there's dozens of sites like that out there, and I have a whole section that says PHR, personal health records, on my blog, and then one of my sponsors, of course, is my medical records, which is a personal health record. It's kind of funny though too when you get into the world of talking about personal health records. There's many different levels of them, and all I care about is get one out there that somebody uses and works. Like my sponsor, my medical records. I mean, theirs is pretty simple. Basically, uploading documents. They've got a few other whistles and bells. You can communicate back and forth, with your doctor in a secure way, and so on and so forth. And that may be all the patient, all you need right there.
Mm-hmm.
And they can you can import your blue button records from Medicare or from the VA into their format as well. Then you
Mm-hmm.
graduate into something like Health Vault, which Health Vault is excellent. I mean, they were one of the first ones out of the barrel, but it may be a little bit more complex than what the average person is ready for. you know, again, if you've ever been in front of trying to sell somebody, not really sell, but promote rather, a personal health record, it's one of the most difficult things in the whole world to, get people interested in.
What's the incentive for someone to go upload their records to one of these sites versus just putting their records in Evernote? Just give the layperson an idea of what the benefit would be.
Okay, well, like I said, in Health Vault, you've got all different kinds of apps that are in Health Vault. You've got pedometers that connect and so on and so forth. You can also add all that additional information in as well. And by comparison, if you're back over to My Medical Records, you've got they've got different folders where you can even put your dog's health in there. They've got a vault where you can put secure legal documents that you need. And again, it's theirs is more of a document server, whereas Health Vault is expanded and doing all kinds of other things. But the average person isn't ready to even get anywhere near understanding that.
Right,
So,
right.
so like I said, they're all good. It just depends on just use one.
Use one. So I'm with you where I see that I would be more hesitant to give my records over to a corporation,
Hmm.
um, especially one that because they disclose, at least this one, MediGuard, I believe was the name. They
Hmm.
disclose that you may be solicited for clinical research opportunities.
Hmm.
So if I didn't know anything about clinical trials, I would be hesitant to upload my records there. Why would someone want to do that versus just putting their records in Evernote and just keeping them for themselves?
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, putting it in Evernote if you wanted
Right.
to, but when you have a format like the personal health records, they also give you that avenue to communicate securely with your doctor
Okay.
and, a few other whistles and bells that come with it. I mean, it's like, you can usually, all of them have where you can look up adverse drug reactions with one drug against the other. You've got all that information in one space too to look up. So, I mean, that makes it convenient.
Mm-hmm.
Evernote isn't giving you that, as
Right.
an
Right.
example. Basically, it's trying to make it a one stop shop for what works for you. That's the
Mm-hmm.
big thing. And privacy statements, yeah, that's a big deal because anymore, though, some of these, and it's not just me saying this, but some of the people like, if you go into even like WebMD, their site, and enter data, not medical records, but just other stuff you're inquiring about and so on and so forth, well, that stuff all gets scraped and mined. And then pretty soon your inbox starts filling up with junk mail or however, they utilize the information.
Right.
It's interesting though, too, because we have people mining data for the good and we have people mining data to make money, and sometimes they're both are working at the same time,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it gets tough. I mean, you had that back in Pennsylvania. You had the situation to where the people at the university were going to get fined if they didn't enter their information and use the portal. Well, you can't quite do that. It's just like, but the thing is, they were looking at it from the other side. It's like, well, gosh, if we don't get participation, we're not going to have as much data to sell. They don't
Mm-hmm.
tell you that they're doing that. It's de-identified, but they're making money off of it. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, Walgreens makes, I want to say, about 1.5 billion to 2 billion a year just selling data. Huge.
Right. And that's all from the prescriptions, right?
No, that's from stuff you buy in a store. I mean, they there's certain HIPAA, regulations you have to work around. And the prescription data, it's kind of a fine line with HIPAA. You can't take that information on a prescription from a HIPAA covered agency element, if you will. But if you get it from a source that is not under HIPAA, you sell it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it confuses the heck out of everybody, and everybody scratches their head. It's like, how can they do this? And then you have health insurers like United Healthcare. They're one of the biggest data sellers around. So they make their money that way. So yeah, the privacy thing is, I tell people, if you look at that privacy statement and it just doesn't come flat out and say we don't sell your data, those are the easy ones to figure out.
Right.
But when you have to go through 5 or 6 or 10 pages of a privacy statement, and it's all written in legal mumbo jumbo, and it's all this, I I tell consumers, if you don't feel comfortable with it, walk away. If you don't understand, walk away. Because you have to have something in a language where people understand it. we all know about getting tricked with legal language these days.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's key. There is the way for one of these app makers, or it doesn't have to be an app, but just a web portal, or whatever it may
Hmm.
be. If you're trying to get subjects from a research perspective, trying to recruit or encourage people to enter their information, and if you're upfront about it, as far as this is going to be used, you can use this service for free for your benefit,
Hmm.
but we will try to pitch you clinical research studies every now and then. As long
Yeah.
as you're upfront about that and you have
Yep.
disclosures and you do some education as well, I
Hmm.
think that will be key. And I don't see anyone doing that that I'm aware of. I don't know if you know of any.
Not really. I had an interesting experience just the other day here. Albertsons is a grocery chain, and they have a drugstore chain in there called Save On. And it was funny
Yeah,
because
yeah.
I walk in and anyway, there's the pharmacist out there handing me a coupon, talking to me, almost tracking me down as people walk in the door. And so anyway, it's so competitive out there for the prescription business. And basically it was worth so many credits and dollars or for me to just transfer any prescriptions I had over there. And I kind of looked at her and I said, you know what, look, I said, you went to school to be a pharmacist, didn't you? She said, oh yeah, yeah. I said, I know everybody has to do their job as they're directed, but I said, do you kind of feel funny being I mean, and I didn't mean this sarcastically at all. I was just asking a question. But I mean, do you feel funny out here handing out coupons instead of being back behind the counter filling prescriptions?
Yeah,
So
that's kind of the state of the industry now.
it is. It is. And so this kind of brings me back around to what we started out with the VA. We've become a nation of stat rats. All we
Mm.
do is collect numbers, 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 numbers,
I
numbers.
see what you did. We came full circle now, back to the VA.
We did, didn't we?
Yes.
But basically, the thing is, I mean, and I think this is a big message from the VA, though. It's a time for everybody to stop and think a little bit because people will work with numbers. Software makes it easy. I mean, we've got a lot of genius software people out there. They're called hackers that run around the world. People aren't dumb when it comes to software. And basically, it's like you have to put the human side back in it again. We're so geared into, and I think this is what happened at the VA. They were so geared into making their numbers. And if you watch the Anderson Cooper initial interview with the staff in Phoenix, all they could talk about is their improvements or what numbers they'd improved in this and that. It's like, and even Anderson Cooper said it didn't even phase them that people died.
Mm.
And so, and I think that we have that coming from the top on down. So I think it's time. I'm almost saying pretty soon we're going to have to take a deep breath and take a look at the data we're getting and not be over reliant on its accuracy because it isn't all there. And yesterday I talked to a doctor that was doing some clinical trials, and it was kind of interesting to hear a little input. I was just kind of asking him kind of what they do, and because he travels a little bit with it. And he says, yeah, he says, we get drugs. They look great. We agreed to do the trials. And he says, but you never know. He says, they look great on paper,
Right.
but you really don't know until you start the actual trial itself. So he says it can be spoken up as great as can be. But again, we come right back around to that same thing what you read and the numbers and the stats and so on and so forth. You really don't know until you bring the human in there. And once you get
Right.
the human in, then everything starts sorting out a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. So as we wrap up, what's the number one biggest concern, at least in your opinion, from personal health records, electronic personal health records, and people using them, the mass people using them,
Okay, personal health records or electronic medical records?
electronic medical
The
records,
doctor's side of it?
the patient side of it,
The patient.
consumer,
Okay, we're
yeah,
back to the PHR.
yes,
Privacy, that's got to be your big thing. And I kind of laugh at some of these, well, myself and a couple other quants that I've spoken with, a couple quants I've spoken with, they've said it's kind of the same thing too. We look at these quantified self people and it's like, it's kind of fun to make fun of them a bit because you've got to stop and think, do people work that way? And the thing that gets obnoxious is, I mean, hey, if you want to use that and you think it's fine, knock yourselves out or whatever, but don't try and tell all the rest of us we got to be just like you. Give us a little space here. Maybe in 10, 15 years we might all be doing this, but it isn't happening right now. And again, it's just push, 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 too fast, too soon. And I mean, you can see it, the stress and everything on the doctors as well. The
Mm-hmm.
pressure on them to save money, save money. And the business, health IT business, has, for the sake of making sales at times, has pushed this money saving element too far as projecting what people will save. We want to get better care. If we save money along the way, that's great too, and we will save some money. But
Mm-hmm.
all these projections, you have people on Wall Street and so on and so forth. With some of this, whether it be a device company, a medical record company, they're already starting to bank on this, and guess what? You can't. You
And
can't bank on your savings.
It's only gonna get worse or better depending on your opinion. With Google Glass, with more people wearing Fitbit or Fitbit-like devices, and I know I was looking for one that monitors blood pressure. They don't
Hmm.
have it yet, but please please rest assured and know that they are coming. And anything else you can think of is somewhere down the line next.
Well, exactly. You have to, and you also have to figure out your commitment on it too. How much time do you have in the day as a consumer to interact with this device? It's going to require some.
Mm-hmm.
And again, what is your health situation too as well? What do you need? That's another thing and you can overdo it too. I mean, there was a story once of one guy that I think put every device he could find on his body.
Yeah, they
And
have
he
the
said,
ones that monitor your sleep now. I
yeah,
think Fitbit does that. And if you
exactly. I don't,
choose, it gets uploaded to some app.
yeah,
So at that point,
nobody
is it
needs
still
that.
yours or is it owned by by the corporation who built
Exactly.
the device? And yeah, privacy is the issue there.
And how much of that, you know what, you have to stop and think, Dan, how much do you really, really need? I don't care about my sleep. If I had sleep apnea, I might, but I
Hmm.
don't have that problem. So the
Right.
only time I know I care about my sleep is if I'm missing it.
And
And
you
I
will
don't need
know.
a device to tell me that.
Yeah, you will know that without a device.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think too, sometimes we've gotten so off into our world of analytics that we almost come back around to the fact that can't we put some of these simple things in our head together anymore?
Hmm.
And obviously there's software and device companies out there that know this is happening with the thinking when we get off into what I call the grays. And the grays I've written a couple posts about that too. That's where people with all the advertising, marketing, everything flying at them today are getting confused. They don't know how to separate a virtual world value from a real world value. So as a comparison, doctors deal with the real world every day, and we have a name for that. It's called patients. That's
Mm-hmm.
us. But when you get out there, and again, coming around a little bit to the VA again, they were so off in their virtual world of statistics and meeting goals. And for years, I mean, you've read it on the news, so have I. It's been a constant pounding, pounding, pounding over and over. I mean, we've been, kept in the dark and just been beat over the head with it. So, it's kind of been a subliminal thing, I guess you might say, to a degree, because all of a sudden everybody's stat happy. I go chasing them on Twitter every once in a while just to be a little ornery. When I see people out there, somebody will put some stat story out there. Oh my God, you get 10 or 20 people retweeting, and it's like, something stupid about coffee, some percentage. And I'm like, who cares? But when you stop and look at it, there's that gray situation again. It's like people think because we get numbers out there and the formula could be a total fake that all of a sudden, hey, this is important. We got to get it out there. We're like little magpies. Boom, 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 boom. And again, even the news media too. And you actually see some of the journalists making fun of themselves as well today because they're all looking for money. That's no
Mm-hmm.
secret there.
Shock
And
journalism.
exactly. And they're looking for revenue streams. And so they're looking for ad revenue, ad exposure, ad
Right.
impressions.
Right.
So some of the news that we're getting today is kind of, it might have a title in it that's really going to irritate
Right.
you. So you go read it. And, it's clickbait, I guess is what
There's a
some of.
really good book called "Trust Me, I'm Lying." That's the
Hmm.
name of the book, and it talks. only about this. It's Trust Me, I'm Lying: Confessions of a Media Manipulator. It's somebody who used to do this for a living.
Ah,
Fantastic read, Barbara, and it's an easy read too. I think I read it in one weekend, so check it out.
well, you know what, too? Well, since you're promoting that, the first in my blog, I have in the footer 4 videos. And the first one is somebody else that talks about quantitative justifications for things that are just not true. And it's Professor Sly from NYU.
I thought it
And
would be E Patient Dave.
yeah, he wrote the book called Proofiness, The Deceptive Arts of Mathematical Deception.
That's
So
E
we're right on the
Patient
same.
Dave. E
Uh,
Patient Dave did that, or
no, Charlie Seif, he's a
ah,
professor from NYU. He's a
okay.
mathematician.
Hmm.
And it was a speech he gave at Google's New York headquarters a couple of years ago. And he's so right on the money. And actually, clinical trials, Dan, are mentioned in his video. And the one, I won't spoil the story for you, but he said this one was a fake because the fish was dead. So you have to watch the video now to see what the fish was dead is all about.
I'll check it out. Everyone go, and that's a good way to wrap it up. What's the blog, Barbara?
Okay, the medical quack.
Okay. The Medical Quack, just Google it. It'll pop
Just
up.
Google it. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I'll go there
easy.
and watch that video. So it's on the bottom of your blog.
Yeah, I've got 4 educational videos in the bottom of my blog, and then I've got another page while I'm here. I've got a link. I've got another page called The Attack of the Killer Algorithm. So if you want to find out about financial numbers, math, and so on and so forth in a way that the layman can understand it, I've got a link up at the top of my right hand corner on that. So you can start out with those 4 in the footer and then graduate over to the killer algorithm page if you like.
Everyone do that. I will have links. Thank you, Barbara. And thank you for watching. This is Dan from theclinicaltrialsguru.com.